Don't even know what to say, man. So disappointed. So disappointed. I'm worse than I was yesterday. And pretty sure the beer played its part in that, because it didn't feel as bad last night as it does this morning. But it's not good at the minute, is it? It's really not good. I'd like to try and apply some logic to that, some sort of sensibility, a bit of rationality to the situation, but stings, man. Just the season we've been having. And I mean, there's stuff I wanted to talk about with you guys as well regarding the players and Pep in particular, which is pretty much, the players and the manager are the two main things you can talk about when you're talking about a football club, but that's what we're going to be doing. And, before we do that, I want to talk about the refereeing decision, because as much as it's a disastrous day for Manchester City again, and I used the word disaster a little bit brash there, to be honest, because relegation, that's disaster. Do you know what I mean? Nearly going out of business, that's a disaster. Losing an FA Cup final is a sour taste. But the standards of Manchester City, it feels like a disaster. It feels like a disastrous season when you compare it to previous seasons. But there's no two ways about it. The referee decided the game yesterday, and the people are not talking about that enough for me. It's been brushed under the carpet, and massive respect to Crystal Palace for getting their first trophy in their existence, which I think is an unbelievable moment for them. And I genuinely, there was a big part of me that was like, man, I'm happy for them. I genuinely was happy for the Palace fans yesterday, because you could just see the outpouring of emotion in their faces. And as a City fan who saw his side win an FA Cup, the first one in 34 years, pretty much the majority, my whole life I'd never seen City win a trophy. But their whole existence as a football club, you're talking to the old guard of the City fans, not even they can relate. Because most of them, if I speak to my dad about it, he saw City lift a trophy when he was younger. These old-time Crystal Palace fans, never, none of them have ever seen it ever happen. So they are in a privileged position to do it. But I still think the referee won them the trophy yesterday. I'm sorry, that's what happened. There's no two ways about it. You stick your hand out the area like that and slap the ball, it's a stonewall red card. And the fact that there's so many United ex-legends in the media suggesting that it was a stonewall red card, the likes of even Wayne Rooney, who despises Manchester City. Mark Goldbridge said it was a red card. So, I mean, if those two in particular are saying that it was a red card, then, I mean, yes, it should have been a double red if they're saying it's a red card. But, I mean, it was a ridiculous decision. The penalty after that was then faced and stopped by the keeper that should have been sent off. It would have been a different goalkeeper. But we move on. There were so many other moments in the game that City were just poor. We need to improve. There's players, there's uncomfortable conversations we need to have with these players now. You're looking at the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden, for me, are the two big players where there are conversations that there is a small percentage of City fans that struggle with the subtle nuances of conversation. They live in a world of absolutes, black and white. Pep out, Pep in. Foden out, Foden in. De Bruyne is washed, De Bruyne has got to stay. They can't have that middle ground of conversation as to why. Explain yourself, sir. Why? Why can't you talk about it? Why does it have to be so definitive? It doesn't need to be. But this is the world we live in, unfortunately, where we have to have definitive black and white answers for everything, in or out. And for me, I think that De Bruyne's final day was meant to be at the end of last season, for me. I think this whole season, we've seen the documentaries where he's spoken about the injuries that he's had, describing his hamstring as a wet paper towel. I mean, if you're still carrying on playing football after describing your hamstring like that, at this level, even though you've recovered and you've got a wand of a right foot, he's just not the same player anymore. And it's impacting his performances to the ability of what we know he can do. The simple things, the simple passes, the simple first touches are just not coming off for Kevin De Bruyne. He was giving away simple passes all game yesterday. The deliveries into the box are just not precise. They are overhit more often than not, or underhit. They have just not got that killer precision, laser precision that he normally has. in recent years. It's not the same. And I think we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about the timing of his departure, because I think it would have been a fantastic way to go out with winning Manchester City the 4 Premier League titles in a row, the comeback, the assist for Oscar Bob away at Newcastle. You picture that as a send-off for Kevin De Bruyne, and you're talking about an absolutely sensational send-off. Instead, we've got to have a year of a sourness to talk about instead. Picking your moments, knowing when to walk off stage. And it's not De Bruyne's fault. I mean, the guy wants to get paid and look after his family, and who's to blame him? You know, I think the club, the hierarchy, Hugo Viana coming in, I think is going to be a breath of fresh air for this club. You know, decisions that have been poor by the club in a very short period of time just go to show how disastrous these decisions can be if you get it wrong, even in a small window, one transfer window of the summer of previous in between 24 and 25 season and the 23-24 season. The decisions that were made in summer were just not good. You know, the signing of Gundogan on a free and Savinho, which is another player we need to talk about in a minute, but the idea that we didn't get rid of certain players, and I say get rid of, like take them round back, take them to the abattoir and put them out of their misery and shoot them in the back of the head when they're not looking. No, I'm not. You want to be respectful of these players, and that's the subtle nuances of this conversation that needs to be held here, because there's so many quality players that you don't want to talk about them in a negative way. Yesterday and this season doesn't undo what they did in the past. It doesn't damage that. It leaves that memory. It stains the memory of how it was for that player. And recency bias comes into it. And it's a shame, because it's a real thing. People remember the last thing you did, you know. Albeit most people will have the intelligence to look beyond that and remember what else that he did. I think Phil Foden is another player for me that's clearly struggling with something, with reports suggesting he's struggling with some sort of bowel problem over the course of the season. It's been a problem which is not good for any football player. If you've got a situation where you can't play football to the best of your ability, then it needs to be called out. But I'm also concerned that he's just falling out of love with football, because he came onto that pitch yesterday, and you look at the difference between Claudio Echeverri, who came onto the pitch at the exact same time, and Phil Foden, and the body language difference. One was buzzing around. You could just see he was just like energetic. The movement of Echeverri was just like bang, 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 bang. He was electric. He didn't deliver anything, unfortunately, and he probably should have scored, Echeverri. But Foden came on, and it just looked sluggish. And if that's down to the illness, it's down to the illness. But then you don't play him. You know, you don't play him. You leave him off. If he's not well, he's not well. And that's sad. But I'm more concerned that, is it just that, or are you falling out of love with football? Because I'm constantly seeing him talk about fishing. You know, he loves fishing. He's constantly at the lakes fishing. Going into YouTube channels that are fishing YouTube channels and making appearances there and talking about fishing. That's great. If that's the new passion for your life, then fine. And maybe you want to call it a day as a football player, then say that. Don't milk the money and continue the money coming in. But if you're not going to give everything for the shirt, you know, that's my concern. He's not giving everything at the minute. He comes onto the pitch and he looks lacklustre. So it's one or the other. You're either not trying because your head's elsewhere and you don't want to do it, or you're ill. Both reasons are not enough reasons to be on the pitch to begin with. You shouldn't be on the pitch then. For both of those reasons, whatever the reason is, you shouldn't be on the pitch. You know, we want to win trophies, and Pep's done that. He's not played him. You know, he's dropped him for so many games, you know. But the absence of Rodri, I think, is another one that I think a lot of people realise it's a serious thing when you lose a player of that quality. But again, we've got to manage those situations. You look at the recruitment in January. I think we need to give them time. The Marmoush signing, and I was alarmed that he was allowed to take that penalty yesterday, which I think Pep Guardiola, we're going to be talking about Pep in a minute as well, by the way, but the idea of Marmoush taking the penalty off Haaland, and Haaland saying, giving a kiss to the ball, then giving Marmoush a kiss, and Pep didn't know who the designated penalty taker was going to be. And I think that's more of an indication that Pep trusts his players. You know, maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he shouldn't trust them as much. You know, treating them like adults, letting them be grown-ups, because you're professional footballers, lads. Work it out for yourselves. You're all capable. Who do you think is the best penalty taker? Give it to that person, let him take it. That was a decision that was made on the field yesterday. Marmoush took that penalty. I'm not sure he should be taking another one, because the alarming thing about it was Dean Henderson, after the game, was interviewed and said, if Haaland was going to take that penalty, I wouldn't have known which way to go. But when they gave it to Marmoush, I knew I was going to save it. That's alarming. That's alarming more than anything. If he knew exactly what Marmoush was going to do, well, he's not taking another penalty then, is he? Because if he's that predictable, where the goalkeeper of Crystal Palace knows exactly what you're going to do when you've never taken a penalty before in the Premier League, which is alarming. It's worrying. Concerning. I think the likes of Hussanov, who's come in and he's done nothing wrong really, and I think he's shown quality, needs more time. He's so young. Vita Hayes needs time. He's young. Nico Gonzalez, I question why we've signed a player if you're not going to play him as much, because we've spent a large amount of money on him. There's question marks over that. And Pep is involved in the recruitment, but it doesn't land at the doorstep of Pep Guardiola. I think the one player I'm actually most concerned about in recent times in terms that we've signed is Savinho, because I think he's got these moments where you can just see this bit of brilliance in him. There's a moment of quality there. But the actual end product is like, oh, you've booted it out for a goal kick, or it's off to Rosed. You've smashed it over the bar. You know, when he got that goal away to Leicester, his first goal in a City shirt, I thought, right, that's it now. The floodgates will open. It's just been the same. And again, another player, albeit because he's only got 6 months longer than the January signings. He's only been here. This is his first season. So I think he needs a bit of time as well. And I would like to see what he can do next season. There is genuinely a good player there, but I'm concerned that normally you see the signs growing a little bit. Our players that we sign and come in normally after the Christmas period and they get 6 months under the belt, you know, they start to show their qualities and little bits of quality pop up here and there. But there's been very little from Savinho. I think Doku needs to work, and I think that the alarming thing about Doku for me is he looked like our most threatening player yesterday. He created the most problems for Crystal Palace. I think he's the most dangerous player they had to face yesterday. But there is a problem. There is a breakdown in communication between Haaland and Doku. I've never seen the chemistry between those two look good. You know, it never seems to be in sync with one another. Haaland goes near post, Doku dinks it over to the back post. Haaland goes right back post, Doku drives it at the near post. And I think that's a lot of Doku, to be honest, because I don't think Doku knows what he's going to do next, which is a problem for the defenders, but it's a problem for us as well. The other players on our team don't know what you're going to do. We need to work that out. So we've got wingers that we've signed, and Pep's gone into the market, and the club has gone into the market, signed these players that are clearly to attack and be fullback demolishing wingers. And they're doing that, but then just the end product is just not there. They don't get the ball into the box with accuracy. There's problems. So are we saying we need new wingers? Because we've just invested in these guys. Are we going to sell them? Because the good thing about Savinho is he didn't cost that much. We got him reasonably cheap, so we could probably sell him and actually make a profit, if anything. But is that what we're going to do? Is it in, out? Or do we not give these players a bit more time, see if they can blossom into players, you know? Because the same people that will be saying, yes, get rid of Savinho, might be also saying, why did we sell Cole Palmer? You know, give them time. See what happens. Maybe if you give them minutes on the pitch, they can actually produce, you know? It's a quandary. It's a problem, you know? And as for the Pep out people, it's embarrassing, in all honesty. It's shameful. I really think it's shameful because I think Pep has given everything to this club, and while I don't want to go too much into what he's done, therefore he is, you know, untouchable. He's immune to criticism. No, I think Pep's had a bad season. He's going through something. Off the field problems with his family, with his wife, and the reports that are coming out. And if that's true, I wish him all the best, because it has a massive, massive impact on your life. I think the guy needs a holiday, man. He needs a holiday, because I do think he's been making mistakes this season. The decision making has been questionable. But when your head comes a little bit loose, it's unscrewed, you screw it back on, and before you know it, you're making correct decisions again and everything's back to normality. People have moments in their lives where they go through something and it affects other things that they have no intention of it affecting, like the football, his job, personal life affects work life. Who's not heard of that before? And if you haven't heard of that before, you're fucking naive. You know what I mean? You're thick if you haven't realised that. Again, it's the subtle nuances. Pep in, Pep out. Why couldn't he rectify this situation? The guy's clearly got the track record of doing it. He's been able to do it many, many times. He's produced football that the world's never seen before. And trophies, that the records that have never been seen before in this country. Pep Guardiola's the best. There's no two ways about it. You know, and the embarrassment for me comes from the fact that I have to point at a fan base that I've grown up to loathe as the United fan base. And dare I say the Arsenal fan base, because it took them a long time to start saying Wenger out. It took them a long time. They were very patient with him. You know, and I don't remember ever hearing United fans calling for Fergie's head. I don't think I've ever heard that in my life, you know. And here we are, 1 year. 1 year of a bad season, following 4 Premier League titles in a row. 2 years before that, we won the treble. And we're calling out for Pep. We're saying, get rid of him now. That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It really is.
This is typical City.